Good afternoon. We are offering live interpretation in Spanish during this meeting. If you wish to hear Spanish interpretation, please click the interpretation button at the bottom right of your Zoom screen. You'll see a globe icon. If you are joining via the Zoom smartphone app, select your language by clicking More or the three dots in the bottom right corner of your screen. Select Language Interpretation, then choose Spanish and click Done. If you wish to hear only the interpreter and not the original speakers, be sure to click Mute Original Audio. Everyone must choose a language. Please do not stay in the default dock. Buenas tardes. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación simultánea al español durante esta reunión. Si desea escuchar la interpretación en español, haga clic en el botón Interpretation o Interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla Zoom. Verá un icono de globo terráqueo. Si se está uniendo a través de la aplicación Zoom para smartphone, seleccione su idioma haciendo clic en More o Más o en los tres puntos en la esquina inferior derecha de la pantalla. Seleccione Language Interpretation, interpretación del idioma, luego elija Spanish y haga clic en Done o Listo. Si desea escuchar solo al intérprete y no a los oradores originales, asegúrese de hacer clic en Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Todos deben elegir un idioma. Por favor, no se quede en la posición de apagado predeterminada. Gracias.
Mute.
Sorry. Andrea, we're set? Okay, we have the interpretations set. Thank you so much. Hello, I would like to call the meeting to order at 5:02. Welcome, everybody. We have a full room here. This is our last School Site Council meeting for the 2023-2024 school year. This is our meeting where we'll kind of just clean up our annual work tonight. We do have a few items to vote on and some informational items that reflect on this year and then the next SSC next year. We welcome Michelle Garino as our admin designee today. And without further ado, let's go ahead and start our business. We have a few items. First, under old business is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on April 9th, 2024. This is a consent item, and there will be a motion to approve and a second to the motion, followed by a yay or nay vote of current SSC members. Members had the opportunity to review the minutes over the past week from the April 9th SSC meeting. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes? Is there a member that would like to make a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, Brian. And a second? Thank you, Julia. So it has been moved by Brian and seconded by Julia to approve the April 9th minutes. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. Thank you. So under new business, I'm going to pull up the parent and family engagement policy and family and school compact. That's my thoughts. We don't want to see that. That's interesting. They made like the stuff happens. We have hard copies and visual read it for this right now.
But everyone had a chance to look at the revision. Essentially, we had one open issue with the policy. We discussed with Superintendent Sharetta. The language presented it at the Board of Trustees as likely. It's included in the paper. Now we need to vote for that with a roll vote to approve. If you have any questions or discussion about the language as it stands?
Was there any change from what we read at the last meeting, and were there any comments from the Board of Trustees and the meeting with Sharetta about that?
So there, we approved the 2 through 5, and there was no comment on that. And then we discussed with Dr. Sharetta before the board meeting the language which you find in your handout, and that's the language that we presented. And there were no comments that I recall from the Board of Trustees other than our need to bring it back to the SSC and vote on it as an SSC to then move forward. And this will be sort of a first and a half read, and the expectation is that with the policy will be approved at the meeting next week.
I found it. I did go to my inbox, so I'm glad I didn't click on it again. So any other further questions about the wording and the nice collaboration and coming to a wording that works for Great. So this is an action item that will be accomplished by a roll call vote of individual current members. There'll be a motion to approve and a second motion followed by the Secretary, Matt Hill, asking for individual SSC members for their votes. We will attempt to vote. This is our recommendation and hopefully for a final vote for the policy. And so would anybody like to make a motion to approve this policy change and correction?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And a second? Anything, Sam? It has been moved by Sarah W.R. and seconded by Matt Hill to approve the correction to the policy. Matt, can you go ahead and ask individual members for their votes?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. SWR.
Yes.
Brian. Yes. Matt.
Yes.
Julia.
Yes.
Maria.
Yeah.
No. And Veronica.
Yes.
And for 10, we can call for nays. Motion passes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, the second item under our new business is the LCAP workshop input and trends with the SSC recommendations in the fold of that, the recommendations. And then a discussion of kind of our LCAP family engagement text box, just kind of some highlights that we did for family engagement in here. And then an explanation of how an SSC next year can undergo a program evaluation tied to the Title I funds based on an SSC recommendation. So it's kind of several components to this. So the first part is the actual, we had a LCAP workshop last year, meeting. The LCAP is what we are, kind of our big thing that we look to. Sarah, do you mind speaking to the trends and this sheet that we included the workshop trends and input from?
So the SSC took the model from borrowed, wanted to mirror the process model for us in their DLAC needs assessment. And although it was a workshop and not a needs assessment, in that they differ. However, the opportunity was for DLAC parents and families to come during the SSC meeting with the explicit purpose of weighing in and looking at the LCAP goals and metrics and giving suggestions, ideas, and wonderings for future years. And so knowing that this one-pager document that is being projected was provided to the DLAC committee from the county office, we thought that it would be wise to again showcase how we mirror one another and aim to be in concert in how we make recommendations or lift things to the surface as being meaningful for our parent and family community. So you'll see the LCAP workshop trends. It has a live link to the transcription of all of the annotations on our LCAP posters. There are some high-level trends also bulleted there. And that's the raw data, so to speak. We kept the current data from our ULAB colleagues as we felt that this data, these data, are very informative as we move towards looking and funneling some recommendations. So our recommendations have evolved over the last few months due to our conversations with administration, after seeing what DLAC had surfaced, after seeing what our needs assessment subcommittee brought forth. And so we would like to suggest the following recommendations with the LCAP, with our Title I funding. And these are the three recommendations, if accepted, would be part of a program evaluation in academic year 2024-25. You can see those items there. There's been an evolution of title and wordsmithing for all three. I think the exciting thing to stress here is that these three recommendations have been looked at through the eyes of, again, several educational partners and showcases the concurrence amongst SSC, DLAC, and administration. And we looked at these recommendations at our last SSC meeting, and so you definitely see how we, the wording
So number one, you would have recognized it at our last meeting as the Summer Bridge kind of initiative. That seemed like just too big of an initiative for what we were intending. So there were already things in place that are planned for the middle school to do some of that early whole child entry assessments. And so we just wanted to kind of capture what was already planned for the middle school and kind of come up with a simple title, but also named a little bit of this kind of idea of just capturing information for our students coming in at the 6th grade level, which there's a huge need to know as much as we can so we can start the year up and running. So this is pretty much what we're going to be voting on, these trends and these recommendations. Do you think it would be appropriate to show kind of how a program evaluation would look based on these before? Okay, so we're going to vote on these 3 recommendations. And so what this process of kind of understanding where we go with our recommendations and how it's tied to Title I funds, we actually looked at county documents. The San Diego County of Education actually had an answer for us. And so here's that backwards planning so once I discovered this, how to do a Title I funded program evaluation, it kind of was an aha moment of what it would look like to have Title I funds directed to our recommendation, and then how we could evaluate that in a year. I'm going to scroll down, and at the bottom of this are kind of what the county gives as examples of how you would do that. So for this SSC, they talked about supporting a computer technician position and which goal it's tied to, and kind of gave a metric to measure it, and then what kind of data they would be looking at. And through the work of the SSC with educational partners, they would look at what's working and what's not working and why. And on the very last column would be any recommendations, modifications, and you could see at the very bottom on the right-hand column, it's kind of the place to have in writing, we recommend continuing this activity for next year. So this is an example from the county. And so what Sarah and I did was we took one of our recommendations, and that would be, this is just an example. You'll notice at the top it says local control and accountability plan, and the one down at the bottom was the SPCA. AEA uses the LCAP for this. And so we just took that first recommendation, and we said, okay, we would do a Title I funded program evaluation of using the funds towards a portion of this whole child entry assessment inventory that we want in the 6th grade that is already kind of in place. We always want to make sure we have guiding questions to our work. This recommendation would be under goal 2 of the LCAP, the current 2023-2024 goal LCAP. And then we just kind of did a mock-up. This is like an example of how we would measure this success, and then the actions, who would be doing it. And I think that the most exciting part for me was to really think about the data that we can do for this. I think a lot of times we think it's always that satellite data. And for this, it would be more having quantitative data, numbers, but also qualitative data, potential to actually ask for focus groups and feedback surveys and asking teachers and students and families, was that a helpful thing that we did? And then you could see, I didn't fill out the rest, but you could see where that would go and guide an SSE for seeing if the program is using the funds wisely. And then we have a little spot at the very bottom to say, yes, we recommend continuing this, or hey, we recommend some changing to that. Does that help you understand? So there's that backwards planning, and it's tied to Title I funds. And any questions about that? That's kind of a lot.
I just wanted to comment that like I love this evaluation form and how it was personalized. There were two things that struck me. One was introducing the concept that the recommendation would be to continue or not continue, and that not continuing would be an option, depending on the evaluation. I think that's important. I don't know that so I think bringing that concept to the table is important. The other thing that I really liked was the fact that it involved not just teachers and staff, but students, age appropriately, and families. And I think bringing the contribution into that evaluation is I think, really important. And so I think using these tools to evaluate the use of Title I dollars next year, it has a lot of potential.
That would be that street level data that Dr. Singleton on the board talks about and is one of her passions. And so that's a great way to kind of incorporate that kind of data.
No, I really appreciate this. As someone with an evaluation background, I'm also just wondering who would be responsible for the evaluation components in the year? Would it be a combination of, would it be members from the SSC if that was their expertise, or would it be going from teachers, and who would be responsible?
I think full educational partners, and then under the guidance of the admin for that, absolutely. I haven't seen the program evaluation done, but I do like it. I like the cycle of collecting quantitative and qualitative data and reviewing and looking for effectiveness. But I think it already, working with the leadership team and the staff at the school, we're going to be doing a lot of this work anyway. So it's actually it's aligned with what we're doing for some other processes, cycle of improvement processes at our school, including the most recent loss visit. So
I was just going to add a thought along those lines in response to Maria's wondering that we are really excited for the next SSC to have an admin designee that truly is that conduit, that designee that ensures that, not that we would do this, as a non-example, just don't go up to kids and ask them what they believe, right? It would be through, everything would be channeled through an admin designee and enacted as such. Okay. So this is the part we're voting on. And we've had discussion. And would anyone like to make a motion to approve this LCAP recommendation and our trends to the school?
I'll motion.
Okay, so Matt made the motion and a second. And Maria seconds the motion. So it has been moved by Matt and seconded by Maria to approve the LCAP trends and information to add our recommendations at the SSC. Matt, this is an individual member vote. If you can please poll the SSC.
So just to be clear, we're voting on the content and block of numbers 1 through 3 at the bottom of the sheet.
Yes.
All right. Megan?
Yes.
Yes. Did you are?
Yes.
Right. Matt? Yes. SGP?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
Here, Jacob.
10 out of 10.
Go ahead. Looking for options now to catch.
And the third item under new business is, we are looking forward to the SFC election process, which will be in the fall. Historically, it has been in the past, in the spring, but through our work with the county and Patricia Garland, we received the guidance that it's in the fall that you want to do it because you want access for all members of AEA to participate in the SFC. So Julia is going to explain the SFC election process. This is an informational item.
As Megan said, the biggest change is that we've changed the elections to the beginning of the year instead of the end because we want to capture those parents of kindergartners and TK coming in, give them the opportunity. We will be asking for volunteers to take a one-year term this time around because we want to stagger the SSC members. And starting August 12th, which is the first day of school, the intent to run will be open, so parents will have a Google form to fill out. And then we are keeping the intent to run open for 2 weeks, as well as the voting this year, because thank you, SWR, know that we had to keep it open for, I believe, a minimum of 12 or 10.
That was last year.
Well, for whatever we need to be at. So they'll need to request with the intent to run, they'll have to they will have to submit a paragraph with their interest that they can bring to the SSC. And then we will get the results on the 18th and they will be notified. And we're promoting this through, I'll have a robocall from Dr. Sharetta, emails, text, social media, QR codes, translation, multiple messaging, and then a former SSC member who will be available for questions. And that will all be wrapped up September 18th.
And then is that it?
Yeah, that's all.
Any questions? I do have a question about the 1-year term. I know we did that this year. Right. So I think it's for 2 years is what
I think for simplification, it should be advertised as 2. 2. And then if somebody gets elected and they want to pick one, I think just to be simple, 2. That was our plan to stagger just this year.
Right. So it is in our interest to have that stagger. So the SSC learning curve is steep. So to have some institutional knowledge on the SSC is very important. So they run for 2, but then during the discussion, they can do 1 at the first meeting.
And then just a couple other things we've been talking about. I'm not sure, Michelle, or from a liaison standpoint. So we thought that the back to school barbecue would be a great opportunity to have an SSC presence. And so who would our point of contact be so that we kind of get prepared so there's a little summertime liaisoning necessary so we can be ready to go at the barbecue?
I can't answer that right now, but I can get back to you on that. I'm not sure who it would be right now.
Sorry, we want something in middle school as well. Not just going.
Oh, absolutely.
Maximum barbecue is at the middle school.
Are you referring to the one that they got night on Thursday?
Yep.
The teacher week?
Yep. And maybe even a presence to parallel, sorry, a little bit, to parallel the teacher luncheon on Wednesday. And this year, friends came and gave out gift cards, but to promote SSC among the teachers and staff, having a presence that whole week or strategically during that week is something we're thinking about. Maybe we can come up with a plan and have that plan in place. Well,
Can you clarify that, Matt?
so Wednesday, SSC comes, instead of speaking about friends, Smith SSC speaks to the teachers and say, hey, look at the SSC, think about running for the teacher position. Mostly, parallel back to the student people, back to the department.
And Matt, I really appreciate you bringing up the middle school, because another reason why to have the election in the fall is not only for TK and K, but we do have many families that come in at 6th grade. And we want to make sure that they're aware of SSC and have the option to run. Any further questions, comments, or it is a ways away? Thank you, Julia, for that kind of doing the timeline for us and thinking ahead. And you're already working with Andrea to make sure that this is, we know the beginning of the year is kind of a push sometimes, but we've done a lot of forward thinking to hopefully make sure that they have everything they need, Andrea needs for the school in order to have this go. So, thank you. Okay, so the next would be just kind of, learning from, this is an informational item, and learning from our work this year, and just kind of proposing just a tentative year at a glance. The year at a glance is a little bit of a guiding document for our work and how to kind of schedule our meetings in line with board of trustee meetings. We made this shift this year to make sure our meetings were always a week before the board meetings. And that's been a huge, very positive, impactful shift this year, so that we can vote on something and then present it to the board, voted on. That's been huge. So Matt, do you want to speak a little more to the GAG? This is just, this always changes, but this is kind of with our work, how we would think the year would go.
Again, it's a living document. It's an evolution. The year would begin on September 24th, at which point it's week after elections. The idea would be that would be not so much a meeting, like an official SSC meeting, as a training with a meeting brief. And theoretically, that could take place in Megan's classroom. The coaching was very effective. And then the first meeting would follow the next week where business would start. And that would also include the Title I meeting. The advantage of the staggered membership is that a lot of folks will be returning next year. So putting together the logistics of the Title I meeting can happen even before all the new members are elected. So it would be Title I meeting, and then the sort of housekeeping introductions. And then in November, the parent family engagement policy workshop would happen. We move things around to be a little more efficient. So that workshop will happen. The vote on all the housekeeping stuff that was talked about in October would happen. What I've got up there is an annual meeting, number 1. So in your packets, and you guys have probably seen the email go around, the two Sarahs, Megan and myself, put together a LCAP process document, which kind of proposes month by month the way to effectively collaborate with administration collaboration, put together the Title I budget in the LCAP. And so that would be the first proposed meeting of a combination of SSC and administration during that month. And that's just sort of a detail. Sarah, that first meeting, you recall what the overview of that would be? No, it's in your hand. Okay. So moving on to December. In December, at that point, we would have the data comparable to what Dr. Diaz did, and that would sort of introduce numbers that would sort of find the evaluation of the needs assessment for the rest of the year. There would be a vote on the policy. Also that month, we would present the Board of Trustees sort of our introduction of what our plan is, who's on the team, that kind of stuff. We would then take off January, because January, right after break, it's killer. It's killer. And so, but while we wouldn't have a full meeting, at that point, subcommittees, especially the LCAP subcommittee and the budget, would be working behind the scenes, would meet, and you see their administration meeting number 2 as a combination of administration and SSC. I know that one is a brainstorming session about how things are going to move forward for collaborating and running the LCAP together, and Title I, and then everybody comes together in February and has an LCAP workshop. And then in February, after the workshop, there would be another meeting with admin with more concrete stuff, with the plan that by March, there would be an SSC vote of LCAP recommendations, so that while the LCAP was being written, or before it actually started to be written, the SSC would have recommendations. It would be participating as it was done. And then you can see there's 2 Board of Trustee meetings. The one in February would be to present the policy. The one in March would be to present the LCAP recommendations. And then April and May would be spent working with administration to come up with LCAP, come up with the budget. And then all that would happen from there, the Board of Trustees. And then the last meeting of the year would be in May, to sort of wrap things up and plan for the future. You guys will note that we are thinking about, and again, this is for discussion, so please, if you have comments, I hope you're writing down. The plan, we tried a speaker series this year, and it was great for us, but it was intended for the purposes of parent-family engagement, and I don't know that it was able to be promulgated efficiently. And given all the work that you see up there, which is all required, to add in a speaker series, I think is may not be the best choice. So it was left off of this provisional year.
And we felt like the workshops were very impactful, that were more tied to our actual tasks that we have to do annually. Any questions about the ag, or kind of this is just, you know, recommendations, the living document. It was kind of doing again that backwards planning, also shifting, so not everything is slammed to May and for these final votes. I think it's more in line to when the actual school is talking about a lot of these things. So I really appreciate kind of the shift. I also definitely appreciate not having a January and April meetings after that breaks. It's tough on all of us to do that last minute stuff.
One question is about the number of meetings. So I know that there are 7 meetings there. Is the first meeting like an official meeting like this? Or is it more training?
We thought training.
We thought training and not official. So we wouldn't have all these resources available.
Yes,
we need those resources.
That is the intent behind, that is the first
Exactly.
one of my question.
Exactly.
Because I know that we want to be mindful of resource allocation. So
Absolutely.
There's that. And then second, about the speaker series, I really appreciate how Matt lifted up our own SSD capacity building by hearing from experts in the field here at AEA and some of the feedback from DLAC and our LCAP workshop indicate that parents really want to have opportunities to be in dialogue or more hands-on around parent engagement topics. So while we learned, or I'll speak for myself, I learned a great deal from hearing Brian speak. Our community has spoken that they want a much more interactive, dialogic opportunity to learn.
I want to piggyback off of Sarah's comments. Just
wondering about, and talking about number of meetings, where it says admin meetings, in these little boxes, are these the additional meetings that, in addition to the SSC meetings those evenings? Do you know how
this is with Dr. Sharetta. This is Dr. Sharetta and select SSC members. Yes.
So whenever it says admin meeting, that's Dr. Sharetta and select SSC members.
Somewhere else in the month, not that day.
Okay, so then the admin, thank you, okay, because I wanted to clarify that. Yeah. And then, so then the admin designee on SSC would be someone separate. Yeah, we're gonna have that other person who's on the. That should also be on there too, yeah. Okay, so admin designee, we just come to all of the regular meetings, right? But then, or it says admin meeting, number 1 here, number 2, that's Dr. Shredder.
That would be between the admin designee and Dr. Sharetta. I understand your question, but I would think that would imply that would be those 6 meetings plus 1, or the admin designee.
And that would be the 1 person. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we can talk more.
Yeah,
okay. Got it. And then just piggybacking also on what you had said about parents, parents being able to be more interactive when they are learning. I think that that's good feedback for the parent universities too, because like all of you, I learned a lot from the SSC meetings where we had the speaker series, but the parents weren't really here. You know, there wasn't a lot of in attendance, or, you know, and it wasn't super interactive except for the workshops, right? So I think that that's good feedback for our parent universities. Just thinking a little bit more about those. I've helped with those in the past, and I know that the staff members who are running those now are super open to feedback on those.
The other thing for discussion is that it came up is we had a lot of logistic support. We had food, we had an extra half an hour for the meeting, we had childcare. And does anybody have any thoughts in terms of resource allocation, whether that would be something that would be yes or no from your perspective for next year?
Who's funding that?
What's that?
Who's currently funding those things? Is it coming out of school? Where does that money come from?
The school.
The school.
The SSC doesn't have money, and it would be an appropriate use of Title I.
Yeah.
Doesn't that come from Title I? Isn't there a provision for Title I to fund these activities or no? What might
That's a good question, and I don't have the clear answer for you that I can stick to right now. And right now it comes out of the school. I don't think it's specifically designated for Title
You know approximately how much money it costs to eat and do all of this per meeting?
I think that's a great request. Do you think we can get that information?
I think we can get that information, but I think that our philosophy as a school is we want to provide everything we can to make these meetings accessible to our learning community. So, I mean, this is for all of our parent universities. We provide childcare and dinner. For our DLAC meetings, we provide childcare and dinner, and then for the SSC meetings as well. But I think if you guys are wondering about attendance and if this is the, yeah, I guess we can get the information on what this is costing us. We can get the information on where it's, on what budget area it's from. But I guess I'm wondering if that's the question you guys are really asking, or are we asking, like, is it worthwhile for the SSC to have that?
Well, the debate is, or the thought is that with resources constricting, should those constricting resources be the determination of how much of SSC required is actually done, and should the needs be limited because having been possible, or should we do our work irrespective of the cost of the resources? And if need be, limit the resources at each meeting, but still do the work.
Just being mindful of the funds.
Yeah, I will just throw out that I know earlier in this year, I would not have been able to attend meetings without childcare.
Okay.
And I wouldn't want that to be a hindrance on someone else serving on the SSC. And I also, having an opportunity to feed my kids here versus having to get home from a meeting, 6:30, 7 something, and having to throw dinner together. That could be a real, hindrance, especially if you have little ones. I mean, mine are a little bit older now. Just compared to last year where my kids were, luckily we were on the elementary school, but my kids were in the aftercare program. I remember they were the last ones picked up because I had to pull them right up to the very end, and it was just very difficult. So I would hope, especially with eliminating a few meetings in the future, that it's not a consideration that this board made, and that we continue to provide childcare.
And sorry, Megan. I was just going to say, I would want it to be equal for what we do for DLAC as well. I think that that's really important because these are two really important opportunities for parents to be involved. And so I want to keep that the same for all of those experiences.
And in our meeting with Dr. Shredder this last week, he shared that kind of really aligning with DLAC and SSC, continuing to do that. So that was great. So next, any other questions about that? This is, of course, going to be taken up at the next SSC and how they proceed. So I did skip an item. SSC has actually had an amazing amount of participants in our community this year. We get data from Andrea and Brad, and just each meeting we have members on Zoom and we have members here. And so just kind of for a little fun, we do have some gift cards for 12 people that have attended this year. So you attended it for good reasons, but we want to just kind of acknowledge that we really appreciate your attendance. We got a grant through the Friendsgiving that allowed us to buy these gift cards. What I did to kind of pick the 12 is I just in the spreadsheet put all the attendees' names in the spreadsheet, and then you can do a random sort on the spreadsheet. And so I'm going to name the 12 people that will get a $10 gift card, and I will find a way to get them to you. So starting with Veronica Gerazo, Jennifer Hernandez, Patrick McGarry, Minerva Cornejo, Jose Santibanez, Rosalie Henke, Bertha Lopez, Katie Pipes, Maria Orr, Patricia Steinmeier, Joshua Lane, and Elizabeth Damon. So thank you so much for coming and participating in our SSC this year. It's been fun. And so I have gift cards for you here, Rosalie. You've been to our workshops, and we really appreciate your attendance. So.
Just to add, the Friendsgiving is from the Friends of AEA, which is our PTO.
Oh, thank you.
In case we have different audiences.
Yeah, thank you. I always appreciate explaining that. So the kind of the last thing on our agenda is just a little, we are an IB school, and we always want to be reflective, and we want to think about our work and do a reflection. We do have an LCAP family engagement kind of highlighting so much of what we've done for family engagement this year. Sarah and Matt, if you can speak to this, and it really does highlight a lot of the things that we have done this year.
I recall at a prior SSE meeting, we had part of our subcommittee presentation, the LCAP subcommittee, highlighted this box where administration can share what avenues and how the administration went about to garner input from the community members. And so knowing how busy everyone is, we thought that something we could do as an SSE to perhaps add value and assist with that process is come up with this list of suggestions for that box that needs to be populated as part of the LCAP process. I'll let Matt talk about the actual contents. That's the rationale of why.
To be used or not used, it's just items that we highlighted that we actually did.
So, very well put, Sarah, very well. So essentially, that's a summary of all the agendas and what we did. If there's anything that, reading through that I didn't put on there, we can add it before we submit it. Again, it can help populate the box. There's a couple boxes about family engagement. The one that Sarah's referring to that I looked at mostly was how educational partners were engaged in the creation of the LCAP. And I think that even later, there's other stuff about pure engagement. Looks like it. So, anybody have anything that was left off, or do you think really should be in the LCAP, but it should highlight or applicable?
I'm also wondering from Michelle Barreno's perspective, because I'm wondering, did we capture our collaboration with ELAC? Anything there for you and your colleagues to build from?
I might want to just look at it again through that lens, because I wasn't looking at it through that lens before. I see DLAC referenced here a couple of times, so thank you for that, because I know you guys have really gone above and beyond and really seeking out input from DLAC. But I'll look through all of our DLAC records too and see if there's anything else to consider to add here. Thank you for that.
That actually made me think if it is appropriate to also approach friends and see if there's anything, maybe the gift cards, for example, is already in here in terms of if that has a place. But again, if the purpose of this input bank, so to speak, is to add value, to make that input for the team easier, perhaps we can also interface with friends. Is something to think about. And so this is just kind of for this purpose, but are there any things that any member wants to share about highlights or something that you would like to see in the next SSC? Just kind of your reflections of the year.
Yeah, I mean, this is my last SSC meeting after 2 years. You know, we started really at zero. And I really do want to call out that there are a lot of dedicated individuals, both on last year's board and this year's board, that really gave so much of their time to get, you know, systematic processes that you see before us and suggestions for next year. I would just hope, you know, next year that they really, you know, the partnership between admin and SSC actually grows. Over the past 2 years, I've heard a lot of promises, not all of which came to fruition. So I'm optimistic there may be a better path forward, but it was a little frustrating just from my standpoint. Even this year, hearing a lot of repeated promises that never came to fruition. So hopefully, moving forward, it becomes a strong partnership and everyone works together. Really, everyone has the kids' interests at heart. So hopefully, you know, we can strive towards that goal together.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other comments or questions or reflections?
Of course. So Sarah, let me kind of go. So Sarah, to piggyback on what you said about starting at zero and really putting in structure, I've really tried myself to become the subject matter expert on ed code more so than I ever even knew that ed code existed. But Sarah, that's what you are, we're the expert to the expert. Mm-hmm. And so to double check and verify and really make our structure credible. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all your efforts and your availability and your expertise and your candor. So thank you so much.
Ditto. I mean, Sarah, WR, just so much confidence having you with us and beside us and as a guide for compliance, which has always been a value of ours, a guiding value. And we're going to continue to strive for that compliance piece, but it's also that partnership
that allows us to continue to be compliant, and just took the lead with that, and we really appreciate what you've done for last year and this year's SIC to have us move forward.
Two more personal things. So Megan, okay, you're in, besides your teaching ability, you're being exemplar in that respect. On a personal level, as a leader, you've done a phenomenal job leading the SSC, again, from zero to where we are. Carefully, so. And so I applaud you. We definitely wouldn't be where we are today or we're going into the future without your leadership, wisdom, and experience. So thank you. SGP, subject matter expert, even when you're geeking out in education. I compliment you because, again, with respect to the credibility that each of you bring to this group with your own sort of expertise and knowledge, I thank you and appreciate your in partnership, your work. But I will say, and not on a personal note, on a more objective note, to echo what SWR said. I think it's important as we move forward to recognize that the work that the SSC does is important. It's important for our students. It's important for our students who are at our school now, as opposed to theoretical who might be or what the future might hold. And so we've talked time and time again about the fact that parent-family engagement impacts our students. And I think that we could have that as well as our reduction of more resources and interventions in our mind. I think relationships are part of that, but they're not the end all. And there are legal requirements and there is compliance, and that is what guides what we do. I believe that we need to hold ourselves accountable and our educational partners accountable to achieve that compliance. And regardless of, we don't serve at anyone's pleasure. And we're not here based on emotions, we're here based on objectivity. So I think we should do our work accordingly and expect the same of those that we work with.
Yeah, I would just say that I agree with basically what everyone said already, that there are some very dedicated, you all are very dedicated, and it's very evident how much work and time you put into this, and I think that it's an amazing thing to witness. I appreciate the work that you've all done. I'm just, I really would love to think about for next year, just to be super thoughtful about the parent engagement piece, about it's super important to engage parents in this topic of the use of Title I funds, and to figure out a way to structure, there's the compliance and there's necessary formality to these meetings, but there's also being really thoughtful about when we're inviting parents, how we're making sure that the meetings are structured in the way. I don't know if there's a way to separate out voting and topics that are very specific to those who sit on the SEC versus the workshop. I think the workshops are that perfect avenue for that, but I just feel like when inviting others to come in, if they're only invited for a portion, it can feel like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Without that, it's not intentionally, it's unintentionally invited, you know what I'm saying, in that respect. Not that I feel that from anybody, but just formal environments and position and things like that. And so I would love to figure out a way so when the invite is out, it's like parents walking being like, I'm meant to be here,
I wanted to be mindful of the time, but I also feel like it's really important to speak. So I just want to say thank you to all of you, members past, members current, because I know it takes a lot of dedication and time to do this kind of good work for our school. So I know that things have been bumpy at times, and I know that we're working as a leadership team to make sure we know that you really want that designated person for next year. And so we're working on that going forward. And so thank you for the opportunity I've had to be, I think, here for the last 3 or 4 meetings. And always just, I want to thank you too for just always building that relationship with DLAC and setting such a great example for the DLAC committee as far as what we can do too, compliance and more. So I know that Megan has been a great resource for me as well, so thank you.
Just want to extend my sincere gratitude to our certificated and classified staff members who have been maybe voluntold or volunteered to be here. This is such an it is a labor of love, or maybe another word. And I'll speak for myself as a parent of 2 children at the elementary school. It means a lot to me to know that there are folks on campus that take their time in addition to their teaching duties, which are already exhausting and exhausted.
Well, thank you. So we'll move to the next item. It is, we always have a place for DLAC. I know that their meetings are done and concluded. So Michelle, do you want to speak to anything? Yeah, I'll just share that we do have one last meeting, but that's our reflection meeting, that's sort of closed meeting, and we are just sort of like our training meeting at the beginning of the school year, where it's not open to the public, but we sort of reflect and revise into what we could do better. The last meeting was well attended. We've been really grateful for the last couple of meetings. I think we had about 13 parents in attendance at the last meeting. A lot of voice. We had, it was really, the focus was engagement and attendance. So Veronica LaRoche spoke at that meeting and had a lot of great information to share. We talked about how engagement is one of the key things to getting kids here to school. So we did a whole morning meeting with the parents who were here, and that was a lot of fun because we took them through all the morning meeting activities. And then Veronica talked about some really key points, just as far as attendance goes. Of course, the academic and social emotional impact on kids, the financial cost of the school when the kids aren't in here as well. And then just how our English language learners tend to have higher levels of chronic absenteeism and what we can do to remedy that. And really just talking about building relationships, what we're doing as a school to build relationships with these families, provide supports for families, and how really at the end of the day, attendance is that shared responsibility across the learning community. So we're going to be looking at ways to improve our attendance again in the year going forward. Great, thank you, Michelle. The next item is the opportunity for public comment. This is the point of our agenda during which members of the public may speak to the SSC on non-agenda items. Is there anybody on Zoom or that would wish? Okay, thank you. So we have concluded the May FFB meeting, and this is the last meeting of 23-24. Thank you for attending today. This meeting is adjourned at 6:01. Good. Wait, can you guys stay for 10 minutes?